Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
I'm here to save the day. I'm here to save the day.
Soon I will be invincible. Because comics. Welcome to Because Comics. This is episode 11. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and I'm joined by my co-host, the triumphant Mike Christensen. You rode in with such a beautiful display of people and dancers and gold talismans with your names on them.
It's true. They're all here to celebrate my triumph.
What did you triumph this week?
I am glad you asked, Jay. I think, as you will note from the sash,
yes,
and from the trophies,
oh yeah,
and from the belt, that I am the new hopscotch champion of Middleton Elementary down on Fairfax.
They had a huge thing about that on C-SPAN.
Right.
And CNN and Fox was in blaring. I knew I recognized that specific belt. I mean, it's kept in, locked doors and vaults, correct?
Yeah, this is an infamous belt. I'm still glowing. I'm still buzzing about it.
I mean, you are. You're actually radiating quite a bit of heat. Is that natural, or should I be worried?
Be very worried. This belt is incredibly radioactive.
Perfect. Well, before the fever dream gets any worse, let's talk a little bit about our polls this week.
Yeah.
For, what we are getting from the stores and what we're getting on Comixology if you're getting it electronically.
Which, let's be frank, I get most of my comics.
Yeah, that's right.
Digitally
but just in case, hey, I love paper.
I love going to the store when I have the time to do it.
To be able to have that in your hand. But I guess I'll kick things off. So my poll for this episode is going to be Bryan Lee O'Malley's Seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Seconds is the follow-up to, a lot of you might be, Bryan Lee O'Malley, who? But I'm sure you'll recognize this next title, Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Who?
Yeah. You bastard. So, Scott Pilgrim versus the World was his big claim to fame.
The
series.
Scott Pilgrim series.
The Scott Pilgrim series. It was like 7 books? 6 books? 7 books?
6 books.
6 books. And they turned it into a great movie, Michael Cera, and it's very funny and great. And
definitely check out the movie. Definitely check out the comics. They're terrific.
They're both terrific. Yeah, they're
very
both
different,
terrific.
but very terrific.
Yeah,
not that different.
I think the books hadn't been finished by the time the movie came out, so the movie had to kind of be like, this is what we think the ending should be.
They were kind of working in tandem.
Oh, were they?
By the end there, yeah. There's a lot of bleed over and kind
I
of...
when that happens. It's
a
little bit like Guillermo del Toro and Mike Mignola working together when he was making Hellboy, and there's a lot of cool stuff.
But there's also, there's like the influence into the books, but also there's still very much a very different ending, and it's got its own resolution as well. It should,
which feels fun. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure. Which one do you prefer, the movie or the book?
Right, but that's not what we're talking about today.
Right, we're talking about Seconds. So Seconds, a completely different. Not completely different, because it's by the same writer and artist. Bryan does both. But it definitely has a different themes, and it's not as action, it's not an homage to video games.
Right.
Seconds is very much a more contained story. It's very specific on one character who actually shares some things in common to Scott from Scott Pilgrim. Not for love of video games.
When she falls in love, a sword comes out of her chest.
Right, yes.
Okay.
No. But the main character of Seconds is Katie. And Katie owns, or previously owned, she's now kind of transitioned to a new place, but she owns a restaurant called Seconds, the title of the book. And she's like an amazing chef, and she's turned this restaurant over the last 4 years into this new, like, amazing place where all the hip people go and everybody love it. But she's kind of in this place where she's like, she calls the place her purgatory, even though it's this great restaurant. She wants to step out, do her own new thing. It's kind of like always kind of chasing that new thing that it should be great, it should be awesome, right? So she's in the process of securing a new restaurant location. It's not going well. The contractors are costing more money. She wants to put her name on it. And the reason why it reflects a bit by Scott Pilgrim is both of them are very self-centered.
Okay.
And both of them have a very difficult time, I feel, like learning a lesson. It's like if Scrooge was, with the 3 ghosts from, Christmas Carol, and like by the 3rd ghost, he's still like, I still don't get it. I'm going to go home. And that's what you see a lot with these characters. It's like very hard to teach them a lesson. And the same is with this character, Katie. And it's very funny, it's very meta. A lot of times the narrator in Seconds will be describing, like, Katie felt a little bit off like that, and then Katie will actually speak in a word bubble, I didn't feel that way. Stop saying that. So it's very fun, and it's definitely has a very new, interesting tale to tell.
It's interesting. I have a copy of Seconds as well. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, so I don't want to speculate on a book I haven't read, but I wonder how much of that is in reaction to Scott Pilgrim, the idea that she's trying to chase this new this new project,
right,
away from
it's gonna
this
be
project that she felt she was trapped by. Maybe not trapped by, but that everyone came to. That everyone was like, "Hey, this is terrific." And
that's a very interesting way to think about that.
I wonder if it's his way of kind of coping with life,
his own comments about it. Yeah. And also in a way like that, this is where the story kind of goes like, okay, it's not just a story of just about a woman struggling with her new restaurant, because it is, but where it starts to have a little bit of that more, panache or a little bit more flavor is in the process of her getting this new restaurant. She encounters a server at her own current restaurant that is doing these weird rituals at night.
Okay.
Like feeding something or taking care of something. And she comes to find out that it might be some kind of spirit, some kind of house spirit that protects the place and takes care of it.
Interesting.
And through some things that go wrong for her, and she kind of takes advantage of maybe the generosity of this spirit, she works to almost like very much like a Run Lola Run, or almost like she's trying to redo, without getting in too much, she's trying to redo mistakes that she's doing.
I kind of see what you're going for.
Which is where, it's that idea of, I want everything to be perfect, so she's trying to redo so many things in her life that it starts to create a lot of problems because of this, and not just like, I should have done it this way.
You're trying so hard not to spoil it.
I'm trying so hard not to spoil it.
And that's good, because I want to read this really badly.
And there's definitely some really fun, fantastical elements in the story, and the character is really fun.
That's very much in keeping. I mean, Scott Pilgrim is very in your face with the video game stuff. Like the people he fights,
swords come out of people's chests.
They turn into coins when he punches them hard enough. Yeah, but even we were talking about this off mic a while ago. Brian Lee O'Malley's first book is a book called Lost at Sea, which is about these kids driving to, I think they're driving to college. They're on a road trip, and there's this sort of ambiguous, but it's stated, but it's not necessarily confirmed. It seems like this cat has stolen this girl's soul.
Just a small side plot.
But it's interesting because it's not handled like that's the be-all, end-all. It's very much like she could just be a weird kid who says that. Yeah. That weird kid that is like, I don't know how to have a conversation with her because she talks about this kind of stuff. But it's also like, maybe that's what happened. It's very... I refer to that book as being very Garden State-y in sort of tone. It's very introspective, and it's very, like, she's a very laconic character, and it's a lot of, like, it's diary entries, a lot of it, so... Okay. As the narration. But he's very versatile, and he's definitely, he likes to add in those elements of, like, this is really strange, but, like, but bear with me, because we've got some real human stories going on here.
And there is a lot of really great human stuff in Second. So, guys, definitely check it out. That's on my pull list this week. Mike, what's on your pull list?
Mine is an Image Comics comic called Pretty Deadly. And it's by Kelly Sue DeConnick, and the art is by Emma Rios. Okay. They previously worked together on, I think it was Doctor Strange Season 1, when Marvel was putting out these, like, retellings of Origins. I think they did that one together. Wow. I'm sorry. Those two worked together on Osborn.
Okay.
That's where those two worked together. It was a miniseries right after...
Was that when he was in charge of Hammer?
No, it was when he went to prison during Big Time.
Oh, okay.
When Dan Slott took over Spider-Man, there was a miniseries about him in prison. But these two are doing a weird Western called Pretty Deadly. I almost considered saving this for Halloween because it's very kind of gothic horror, but set in the West.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's very strange. I'm having the hardest time trying to describe Pretty Deadly because I don't want to get into spoilers.
Right.
And B, it's very like the way Hellboy is, where strange things will happen.
And it's just matter of fact.
It's just not matter of fact like blue collar, but matter of fact like, no, we will not explain this. Like, just draw your own conclusion. Like there's a scene I always think of in Hellboy where he's killed and he goes and talks to this witch doctor and he comes back and he has the bell from the witch doctor. And like, but how did that work? And it's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
just it happened.
Quite literally just like, fuck you if you care about where this bell came from.
Don't worry about it. Like, he's got this magic thing now.
He's got this magic thing.
That's what's important.
Beautiful. Enjoy.
This book is stunning.
Yeah.
Similarly, Emma Rios is amazing. I don't know how familiar you are with her art.
I don't think so, and I might be just by accident.
Yeah, you may not know the name, but she's incredible. And Kelly Sue DeConnick is really great as well. She's writing Captain Marvel for Marvel right now.
Which is great.
She's actually Matt Fraction's wife.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
A lot of talent in that family.
Yeah, very much so. But Pretty Deadly, it's got a very fairy tale feel, but not in like the, hey, everything's Disney fairy tale. It's more like kind of grim fairy tale.
The first open scene isn't someone cleaning a house or...
no, the opening scene...
Talking to animals.
The whole story is told to a butterfly, by a rabbit skeleton. You weren't expecting any of that.
I wasn't expecting any of that. I need a moment. I love how you were like, I don't know how I'm going to explain this. Now I understand why. Look. You just got to understand, the story's being told from a skeleton rabbit.
But then the first part of the story is about this blind man and this girl in a vulture cloak, like a cloak that's made out of a vulture.
Okay.
Like getting up on the... what's the name for the gallows? Okay. Getting up on the gallows in the middle of town and draping over this tapestry and saying, here's this fairy tale story about death, and he met this girl and fell in love. And you're like...
everyone's favorite traveling show.
Kind of. And it's just like, and sing this song if you're ever in trouble, and so will rescue you. And they're like... It's a song, basically. It's sort of this folk hero kind of vibe, but very dark and very gothic.
So this story kind of even lays out its own rules. Like, in here, like, if you ever get caught in one of these jams, we got some of these songs for you.
Kind of. You get the sense at least that's what their story is. Okay. These characters are telling.
Okay.
Then you get into the actual story, and it gets way weird.
How weird? Without spoiling anything.
Issue 3 opens with a guy in a hooker's bed. As he's wont to do in the Old West.
Of course.
Waking up, pointing a gun at a crow, and the crow says, put that thing down. And he's like, come on, Molly, what do you want?
And he knows the crow's name?
He knows the crow's name.
And I guess that's all we need.
That's all you need to know.
So if that tickles your fancy, definitely check it out. It
sounds sillier and goofier than it is. It's super, gritty and...
I don't know. I mean, I think it goes by taste, but to me... just what you've described is the kind of stuff where I'm like, I gotta check this out. I mean, it just sounds bonkers.
The first 5 issues are concluded. I don't know when the series is picking up again, but I know you can pick it up in trade, the first 5 issues. I know there is going to be more. I don't know when. But it's really well done. It's got really cool fantasy, horror... Old Westy,
all kind of mixed into one.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's awesome.
It's weird.
Are we following the skeleton rabbit, or is this just
just the bookends?
Sit down, butterfly, and let me tell you a story?
It's kind of like it's the equivalent of Peter Falk and Fred Savage in Princess Bride.
Okay,
where it's like, but what about this? Well, hold on, I'll get to that part of the story.
Man, that is great. Just to imagine that in just the reverse of the rabbit and the butterfly
by one of the characters.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he's like, well, where do you want me to tell the story? Do you want me to start here? No, jump ahead. All right, we'll start with the girl in the vulture cloak. And it's like,
I'm loving this. No more details. Right. This is great.
All you need to know.
Awesome. All right, well, those are our polls for this week. So I think that's going to lead us right into our main segment. Mike, let's kick things off.
Amazing Spider-Man Annual 5: The Parents of Peter Parker. Today we're going to be talking about a comic from 1968, written by Stan Lee, and drawn by Larry Lieber and John Romita, and inked by John Romita. It's the 5th annual of Amazing Spider-Man. I don't know if you know, but comics will do annuals. Yeah, so every year, presumably, they'll just do a special oversized
usually single
issue.
Stories, right? They're just contained events.
Usually self-contained or potentially tied into... This is something that Marvel does these days sometimes. They'll tie into other annuals.
Oh, okay.
For example, Incredible Hulk annual will tell a story that picks up in All New X-Men's annual and then resolves in Daredevil's or whatever. And it's one story that crosses over all 3.
But all at the same time, right? The annuals don't cross multiple annual years.
No, it would be within about a month.
Because that would be rough. It was tune in next year.
Yeah, that would be super shaky. Yeah. No, these are, and especially in the 60s, it was just a one-off story.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure the first annual was a Sinister Six story. I'm not sure if it was the first, but it was a Sinister Six story, I think.
Awesome.
But this one is called The Parents of Peter Parker.
I wonder what it's going to be about.
It's funny you should ask. So it starts with Spider-Man in an alley in Algeria. He's just there.
I never know how these things are going to begin. I try to prep as well as I can.
But without actually doing any research.
It's like biting into spaghetti and tasting ice cream.
I mean...
Spider-Man
I think you'll enjoy this.
Sure, yeah, I'm on board.
Much like spaghetti-flavored ice cream.
I love it.
He's in an alley and he gets amongst the silent shadows of the mysterious Casbah. It's going to be one of those days, Jay. And he's attacked by a bunch of guys, and they've got guns and knives and clubs and giant rocks, and one of them just is cartwheeling at him. Because
all the ways that you fight in Algeria. It's all of the martial arts that they learned
exactly,
there. It's
and they're
all rocks, clubs, or tumbling.
Exactly. But they don't say anything. They're very silent. They just ambush him.
Okay.
And Spider-Man knows...
Is he there taking pictures?
He is in Spider-Man costume. He is in full on, just in an alley.
He's on the streets,
dressed as Spider-Man. No, he's not just chilling. He is amongst the silent shadows of the mysterious Casbah, Jay. I feel like you weren't listening.
So that was like the opening line of this scene?
That's the caption.
Perfect.
They're attacking him, and he knows they were clearly tipped off to him, because this is random and otherwise would make no sense.
Because look, no one would ever notice a man just dressed in a giant blue and red. No one would just
jump him and try to kill him for no reason, without announcing like, "I blame you for the economy of America" or something random, like
just a general thing to blame Spider-Man
I subscribe to the Daily Bugle. Spider-Man beats them up pretty easily because they're just mooks,
right?
But one of the bad guys even like rolls a cart of watermelons into him, and he just easily dodges it. And
they're always everywhere.
Knocks someone else over, but he knocks them out, and then they run off. They weren't kind of expecting how powerful he was, but he follows them because he's hoping one of them will have the answers he's looking for. Because clearly this is not a coincidence.
Right. Like, he's here for reasons.
He's here for reasons. They attacked him for reasons.
He didn't just go to, like, the New York airport that day and was like, Algeria, never been.
I'll buy a ticket. Spider-Man, please. That's the name on my passport. He doesn't even know who his enemy is, but he knows that someone sent them. Someone would have sent them after him, and they know the reason he's in town. If he follows, maybe he'll find what he's looking for.
Right.
He chases them. He's chasing them on rooftops. They're on the streets. He's just following.
Kind of leaping back and forth between the roofs.
But one of them pulls a gun and shoots. He barely manages to dodge the shot. And it grazes his head, knocks him off the building he's on and into the canal.
Come on, Spider Sense.
Yeah, I know. Way to go. I think he does. I think his Spider Sense does go off. It's just like a minute too late.
It's just,
why have it?
His Spider Sense is jet lagged?
Sure.
Maybe that's what's happening.
You know what? I'll take that.
Let's accept.
Why not?
You can jet lag Spider Sense.
The bad guys think he's dead, and they go to report to the Master.
Okay.
Not from Doctor Who.
That right, I was going to say, I was like...
that would be the best.
Whoa. Well, this annual definitely took a turn.
But then he crawls out of the water, he collapses on the ground, he blacks out, and we flash back. Because as you know, Jay, Spider-Man comics don't usually take place in Algeria.
You know, I was thinking that, but now that you mention it, no, they don't typically take place in Algeria.
We cut back to Queens a few days earlier. Peter's helping Aunt May move an old trunk into the basement. She's telling him to be careful. I don't want you to strain yourself, Peter. He's like, yeah, all right, I'm enjoying being...
I can flip cars.
I like this. This is nice. This is fun. And in the basement, the trunk slips. He tries to grab it, but he accidentally breaks the lock because he grabs it at a bad angle. He's like, oh, crap. And everything tumbles out. And he's like... wait, crap, I don't know how to fix this. I need to find a way to fix this before Aunt May figures it out. What if she'd been standing there? If she'd seen that, how would I have been able to explain what I just did? Sorry, Aunt May, I just accidentally shattered this lock. Sorry.
Totally normal thing that anyone can do.
But he's putting everything back in, and he finds two things in the clutter that immediately stop I need to fix the lock on this old trunk train.
Is it a globe with an X on Algeria?
One of them is a wedding photo.
Okay.
Where the groom looks a lot like Peter Parker. The other is a newspaper clipping with the bride and groom's photos, not wedding photos, it's just a picture of them.
Okay.
This is like their passport photos or something. Identifying them as Richard and Mary Parker, and saying that A, they died in a plane crash in Algeria, and B, they were traitors to the United States.
Wow.
Yeah, treason. That's what he learned that day.
That is a rough day.
And he just storms upstairs. Again,
a minute ago, his biggest problems were fixing a trunk.
Yeah.
Moments later, find out about parents. Parents died in Algeria. Considered traitors.
Yeah. He runs upstairs and he's like, how could you hide the secret? And she's like, no, we were just hoping to protect you. When we found out, we could hardly believe it. Like, the shock almost killed your Uncle Ben, but... Richard had always been so secretive, and he never talked about his work to anyone. She says maybe it was wrong not to tell you, but we just wanted to protect you. And he's like, she's like, you were so frail and innocent, we didn't want to hurt you. And he's like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. I can understand keeping a secret to protect someone that you consider to be frail and innocent. I guess I can track with that.
I guess I really can't be mad at you here. You put me in a corner, basically.
No, but he does understand. He's like, it would have been really hard for you to keep that secret all these years. I understand. And she remembers, May recalls the shock because Richard and Mary dropped off Peter, and we're like, hey, we're off to the plane. And then later on, it was like, well, look, they're dead and traitors. Like, here you get to read about all the stuff he never talked about.
And guess what? Now you're parents.
Now you're parents, exactly. And Peter begs for more info. What if a mistake was made? How do we know? What was the evidence? What was the proof that made them traitors? And she says, we never got any. We wrote letters and letters to the man who identified their bodies to try to get some information, and we couldn't find out anything because he never wrote back. Whoever identified their bodies in Algeria just never responded to us.
Was he a shadowy man?
Well, no, we'll get there, Jay.
We'll get there.
But Peter has a hard time believing it. He says, I don't think I'd be able to accept the truth unless I could prove it to myself. But I'm going to try to put it out of my mind. But he can't. He just cannot. He tries to clear his head as Spider-Man, like just get out there, swinging. Get out there and start swinging. And he sees this figure slinking out of a jewelry store in the middle of the night with a bag. And he picks him up and threatens him. And the guy's like, I own the jewelry shop. Here are my documentation. I'm leaving work late, you jackass.
Wow.
And Spider-Man's like, sorry, pal, no one's perfect, and just like runs up the wall, and he's like, I gotta get this
blow off some
sorted
steam.
out.
Get it out.
He drifts through his life for like a few days, and finally vows he's gonna figure out the truth. He's gonna go to Algeria, find someone who knows. I don't know if you know this, Jay. Peter Parker cannot afford plane fare to Algeria.
I was just about to say, I believe one of the main powers besides Spider Sense is his lack of money and funds.
He leaks money.
Power. He just loses it somehow.
That's what his web fluid is very literally, not literally, but basically made out of is all of his earnings.
All of the earnings that he spends on all goes into web fluid.
But he does know the Fantastic Four.
Okay.
So he swings by the Baxter Building.
That's true. He might lack funds, but in the wealth of friends that Spider-Man knows is probably worth trillions of dollars.
And that's the real treasure.
That's the real treasure. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on a very special episode.
Beep. Anyway, no, he goes there. He goes to the Baxter Building and asks them basically if they can loan him a plane. And Ben almost doesn't let him into the building. Again, this dude swings up to like the top floor, but he's like, what if it's Dr. Doom in disguise? Which go back and listen to episode 6, guys. That's not that unreasonable of an assumption.
Thing, totally like a reasonable fear.
He lives in the Marvel Universe, and his biggest enemy is a magician, scientist, maniac, king. Yes, this is a legitimate question. But Mr. Fantastic, says, let's hear him out. And, he says, I need to go to Algeria. And Mr. Fantastic says, well, you're in luck. And Spidey says, if I am, it'll be the first time this year. But, Reed needs to test out this new 2-man gyro cruiser.
Wait a second. Reed's going to test out a plane on Spider-Man?
Developed by Tony Stark's company. His job, Mr. Fantastic's job, is just to give it a test run.
Okay.
And he's going to fly it himself.
I think the idea of testing out anything on Spider-Man is probably the worst insurance fiasco of all time.
That, I think, is why Reed drives.
Probably.
And it's basically S.H.I.E.L.D.'s answer to flying saucers, this thing. You'll get there in less time than it would take Peter Parker to drive his cycle across town in New York traffic.
His spider cycle? I don't know if he had one.
No, he gets a Spider-Mobile later.
Okay.
We may talk about that someday.
I hope so.
Yeah, he flies flies Spider-Man over to Algeria. He flies Algeria over to Spider-Man. That's how
really crazy machine.
I know. No, there's one thing Peter knew about this guy who identified the bodies. It's that he ran a restaurant in Algeria.
Okay.
So Spider-Man goes to this one restaurant, having apparently tried all the others. Close quotes.
Just all of Algeria's restaurants.
And he sees this guy closing up for the night. And he grabs the guy and interrogates him. The guy speaks English because, of course.
Why not?
Because Peter Parker doesn't speak Algerian. Otherwise, it'd be a real short comic.
Oh, right. I didn't think this through. Well, time to go home.
I didn't bring my pocket dictionary. What's the word for treason? Peter asks the guy to think back to the days just after World War II to a plane crash. Because remember, that's about when Peter Parker would have been a baby.
True.
In 1968. And he asks the guy to identify the bodies. And the guy says, how could you do it? Or how could you identify the bodies? And the guy says, they ate in my restaurant all the time. Everyone knew he was a spy, working for a master of intrigue whose headquarters were in this very city. He doesn't know the name of the master, but he knows the address.
Can we just comment on that for a moment? What a terrible spy.
Everyone
and a terrible
knows
spy network. Not only does everybody know he's a spy, but who he works for, who is also known as a master of intrigue.
In the address.
How masterful are you of intrigue if everyone knows what you do?
Literally, I laughed so hard when I got to the line, everyone knew he was a spy.
Wow. Even worse for Peter Parker. Not only did he find out
starting to think
his parents died in Algeria, they were traitors, and he was also a really shitty spy.
I'm starting to think Richard Parker was an alias for Sterling Archer.
Yes, I think that's what it was. Which, if Sterling Archer
was
Spider-Man's dad, would be the best twist ever.
But there's this gangster spy type guy outside the restaurant. He overhears all of this.
Okay.
And he goes off to warn the master,
Ooh.
who is sadly not a Time Lord.
Damn. Again.
I know.
Disappointed.
Still sad. Spider-Man goes to that address, and that's where we picked up.
Okay.
In the alley with the guys attacking him.
Now we've come full circle.
Exactly. He wakes up beside the canal, and he continues to that address. There's a guard at the door, but Spider-Man just jumps down on him, and the guy is out. No, banter.
Right. Just this. It's all work right now.
Exactly. And that's the thing is, he's a lot rougher with these guys. He's cute and tricky a little bit in the first fight, but he's still pretty no-nonsense, especially with the restaurant owner, the store owner, the jewelry store owner. He's beating these guys. He's not beating them up heavily, but he's shaking them. He's giving them the Batman treatment.
In all fairness, if there's one thing that ruffles Spider-Man's feathers, it's family.
Yeah.
I mean, every time, when Aunt May is in danger, when Mary Jane might be dropped off a bridge or something, I mean, it's go time.
That's when we see him get serious.
Yeah.
Very much so. Spider-Man tears the door off the hinges and heads into this office. And he looks around, he finds the secret switch under a desk, he hits a button, and the wall opens up to reveal filing cabinets. And he starts flipping through. He's thinking to himself, I almost wish I hadn't come. What if I find that it's true?
Yeah, if you actually...
Yeah, but he can't turn back now. Because he's in goddamn Algeria.
It's like, well, I did spend all my money to come here.
We have not established a way for him to get a hold of Reed Richards. Right. I assume he'll find a way.
Phone call?
I don't... Does he have money to make a call on a payphone? This is 1968.
Maybe they gave him like a fantastic earplug.
And they're like, by the way, here's a calling card. Here's one of our flares.
You just see Mr. Fantastic flying home, just like, oh, right, I probably should have given him something.
He's just doing loops.
Spider-Man, you down there?
But he finds a folder labeled Richard Parker.
Very nice. And they label those so well in the Master of Intrigue's house.
And inside there... Well, not house, it's an office.
Okay.
And inside there's an identification card. It's laminated. It's gray. It's got a white skull on the front and Richard Parker's signature on the back.
A white skull?
Yeah, because they're the bad guys.
Even their business cards are evil?
Their identification. This is their membership card.
That's awesome.
He's holding it and he goes, "This is
Maybe
true."
That's why everyone knew he was a spy. This is me, Richard Parker.
Oh, here, just to line up with my signature.
Wait, am I not supposed to tell you my real name? I did.
That's true. They identify his name.
Identify himself to everyone, apparently.
Oh, God.
Man, where did he go to spy school?
I don't know. But he's like, it is true. It was always true. My own father was a traitor to his country. He was in the employ of an enemy spy organization. And then he realizes there's someone else in the room with him. His spider sense was going off and he didn't even notice.
Because he was so engrossed
exactly.
in the details.
And he turns around and standing there, wearing a smoking jacket, smoking with a Corella DeVille-style cigarette holder, is the Red Skull.
Oh, man, did that ever pay off that I wanted it to be? Oh, God. When you were saying wearing a smoking jacket and bravo.
It's so good.
Red Skull.
And he goes, well, does Spider... I'm doing the act. It isn't written, but I'm just...
Do it, please.
Well, does Spider-Man himself wish to join the Red Skull's international ring of master spies and saboteurs? Or have you another reason for invading my sanctum and daring to search my private files?
In the defense of everybody who knows about this spy network, it is very difficult to be a spy when your face is bright frickin' red.
Yeah, you're only the perfect size for any mask.
Exactly.
But, they each tell each other that from their reputation they were expecting something like a little bit more, like physically, because they both have heard of each other, and they're both like, I thought you'd be bigger, and then they fight, and by that I mean Red Skull snaps his fingers, and a goon comes in named Sandor. This guy is
Sandor.
This guy's huge, bald, and mute, and he's got that whole, I'm wearing a vest. This is Algeria kind of thing going on.
Oh boy,
this is not the most culturally sensitive comic.
Old comic.
It's not so bad.
Not so bad.
I've read worse.
Right.
Spidey thinks, the Red Skull must think I'll be a pushover, and then he's like, he doesn't know the extent of my powers. Although, come to think of it, I don't really know his either.
I was just thinking, have they really come to blows personally?
They've never met.
The Red
This
Skull
is the first time they've ever met.
That's really cool.
That's the thing, is that when they're sizing each other up, they're literally, for the first time, I've heard of you. I expected more.
Interesting.
Oh, crap.
Oh, wait, maybe you are more?
So he gets pretty roughed up by Sandor. He's still shaken up about his father. That's his sort of, rationale. He's like, I gotta get my head in the fight. Which he finally does once Sandor throws him through the wall. He's like, okay, guy, get myself back in the game. Gotta figure this out.
Luckily, I'm Spider-Man, or that might have gone pretty badly.
He webs up Sandor and beats the stuffing out of him. Red Skull does the whole, okay, he's formidable. All right, and he just bails. And Spidey feels like he's lost. He knocked out Sandor, but, who the hell was Sandor? Sandor was no one to him. Red Skull's gone, And it was what he considers to be the most useless battle he's ever fought.
Wow.
That's what he says. And he calls this the most disappointing trip he's ever taken. Which, fair enough.
I guess. If on all the list of vacations,
he was hoping to clear his father's name and just linked him to the most evil spy master in history.
He didn't think it was going to get worse.
Yeah. He has the membership card and he says, all right, this is going to haunt me forever. And there's this great shot where he's doing basically the sad Charlie Brown mope walk, but he's on rooftops and he's like along the side of buildings.
That's pretty perfect.
It's the best.
Oh, man.
In the rubble of the building, Red Skull comes back and he's pissed, but he finds this scrap of costume. So he has his men call for a guy named the Finisher.
I wonder what his job occupation is.
And he's this older man with a cane. And they hand him this scrap of clothing. He's like, yep, that's all I need. As usual. It's all I need to finish the victim. And Skull's like, yep, Finisher's never failed before.
Is this going to be like some weird voodoo thing?
In his car, he has a bunch of technology.
Okay.
And he's doing an electro scanner to scan the city for Spider-Man based on the spectroanalysis of the torn costume. It's a DNA search, basically.
Okay.
Though they don't call it that, because why would they? That's crazy.
That's weird to use actual science terms.
In a Spider-Man comic from the 60s.
Come on. We know Stan Lee saw a funny word somewhere and slammed it together.
Then he opens up his trunk and launches a missile at Spider-Man.
Whoa, that escalated very quickly.
And it tracks Spider-Man. That's the thing. It's keyed to him. Mm-hmm. So it follows him, and Spider-Man webs the missile and whips it around, and just swirls it around and around and around, so the centrifugal force scrambles the circuits and just tosses it into the canal harmlessly. And just doesn't go off. He's just like...
In all fairness for the Red Skull, this is probably a process that works 99% of the time for everybody else that isn't Spider-Man.
Yeah, most of the people that he's going after don't have radioactive blood. Or spider sense.
Or webs that can spin around and have the strength to whip a missile around and around till it breaks.
Exactly. And he sees where the missile came from. Well, no, Finisher launches another. An even more sophisticated one. Because he's like, oh, well, this guy's...
Now I gotta give him my special
This
gold
guy's the
tip
real
missiles.
deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he sends another one. Spidey sees where it comes from. He jumps down at the car, and the missile blows up the car. The driver runs away, and Spider-Man lets him go. He pulls the Finisher out of the car, who says the explosion backfired on him, so he's as good as done for. Which means that he is dying.
What?
He is sitting there, he's like, oh, I'm as good as done for. And he's like, then tell me about Richard Parker. Do you remember Richard Parker?
Spider-Man, our hero. Find a hospital.
The third time that he's letting someone die on our podcast.
So many people die on this podcast.
I mean, aside from the people that
we really like Spider-Man,
there's
everybody.
The people that he lets die that haunt him. You know, George Stacy, his uncle, his aunt like a bunch of times, Gwen Stacy. Like, that's fair.
Yes.
That's fine. That's the gimmick. You know, there's a scene from a Dan Slott comic where he walks through a city full of people he knew who died. And, that's fine.
Yeah.
But this is just like he blew him up.
Yeah.
Like, he blew him up.
He is 100% responsible for this guy's death.
I mean, to be fair, that's the guy with the missiles. But still. But then he asks, like, do you remember Richard Parker? And Finisher says, yeah, I was ordered to kill him. Because we found out he was a traitor to the Red Skull. So I was meant to kill him. And Skull didn't just want him dead, he wanted him dishonored, thought to be a traitor to his country. So we framed him. I made his plane malfunction, and he can, like, imagine. He has a thought bubble of picturing Mary Parker going, it's the Red Skull's doing. He's learned the truth about you as last, which, like, is purely speculative.
Right.
It's fan fiction in his head. Like, he's like, I bet she said this when their plane went down.
He probably
Algeria.
was, triumphantly raising his fist to the sky and...
Yeah.
I love my country.
And then the last flashback is, we see the restaurant owner saying he planted evidence on the bodies, and he's telling the Skull... He's
damn
like,
restaurant owner.
And he's like, I'm worried the police will find out, and the Skull's like, who's really the person to be worried about being mad at you? Is it the police or is it me? Go home. Like, don't ever talk about this again. You are dismissed, sir.
You are out of here, sir.
You are dismissed, sir. Oh, I lost the accent.
Who knew that the Red Skull had a summer home in Algeria?
Yep, pretty much. So he closes the case on Richard Parker. His revenge was successful.
Wow.
So Spider-Man is like, well, first the Finisher dies. And Spider-Man's like, I couldn't get anything in writing.
I couldn't get any more out of this useless dead
So
man.
I need to get some evidence. So he has to clear their names, so he has to go back to the Red Skull. He breaks through one of those ornate iron barred
windows. Which I feel like you
windows.
still should go back to the Red Skull, because if we remember, he was the one that ordered the takeout of your parents.
Yeah, either way. But he needs evidence, mainly.
Right.
And he goes there, and Red Skull's just chilling in like a very throne room-esque secret lair, which does not disappoint.
Of course.
He's just sitting in one of those like thrones. Like, what is he doing?
Is there anything in that room? Like he wasn't watching TV
He's
or
just
something?
sitting there. If you had a throne, you'd just sit there too.
True. You'd take long hours of just pondering. Just like, this room might need some more plants.
And then Red Skull fires explosives at him from the command chair. Because there's missiles in the chair.
That's why you sit in a room like that.
That's why you sit there.
You sit there long enough to wait for someone to show up so you can use your missile chair.
Yeah. Oh, is the finisher... Did he not call in? Have we lost touch? I'm going to be on the command chair.
I'll be on the command
chair. Because of course I am.
Awesome. You know he was so excited to see Spider-Man come in there.
No, he's freaked out. He's like, what's going on? Missiles. But Spider-Man effortlessly dodges them because, once again, of course.
Spider sense.
Yeah.
It is very interesting to have two very mismatched, villain and hero that never run into each other in a comic. That's very interesting.
And Spider-Man basically just straight up asks. And Red Skull's like, yeah, I framed Richard Parker as revenge. Yeah, so?
Of course.
Like, whatever.
You don't happen to be related to him, do you?
And he doesn't make the connection.
He doesn't make that leap.
All. Then the two armored statues come to life and attack Spider-Man. He dodges them, he attacks the Skull. And Red Skull's a really good fighter.
Yeah.
Like, he fights Captain America to a standstill regularly.
A lot.
And then he pulls open his chest and he's got another death ray device strapped to his chest. But Spider-Man tackles him. The Destructor beam, which, no explanation.
Yeah, why not?
Hits the command chair's power source. No explanation. And there's a huge explosion. Spider-Man escapes the flame, realizes the Skull is gone. So either the fire got him or he escaped. No attempt to look for a body.
Recover for a body. I again imagine a scene of just the Red Skull in a room being like, I want the chair over here, and they're like, yeah. Now you have that Destructor beam. Remember, don't have that in the same room as the chair because they have different, the power sources.
No, I'm putting it on my body.
I'm putting it on my body and I sit on the chair. I think our accents are both way off.
They're so bad.
So off.
But he's still looking for evidence. And then he realizes that the card he has, the membership card, Richard Parker's evil spy membership card, is singed, and he's holding it, and he's like, wait, there's another card concealed inside this card.
Oh, boy.
And he pulls it out, and it's his dad's credentials as an American counter-spy answerable only to the USA. That's why he was murdered. He's been fighting the enemies of our country, fighting Nazis and fascists as a secret double agent.
Can I just say that the spies in the Marvel Universe back in the 60s were terrible, just for the fact that you have a business card that says you're a counter-spy? Why do you
hidden in your regular membership card?
Why do you have that kind of documentation on you?
But he swings away and he goes, after all these years, after all the heartbreak and shame, which, by the way, he had to deal with 3 days of.
Right.
He's such a teenager.
Yeah. My life's so rough.
Yeah, I've redeemed his honor. I've cleared his name. Never again will I bemoan my secret identity or toy with the thought of giving up. I've finally vindicated my father and the mother whom I've never known, and no one but Spider-Man could have done it. He vows to never again consider quitting Spider-Man.
Because of this?
Because only Spider-Man could have done this, guys. Only Spider-Man.
Only Spider-Man. I mean...
This is before the time when he takes the magic sauce to try to cure himself and gives himself extra arms. He quits so many more times.
He tries to quit, very... Yeah, you're right, with that
regularly.
Episode we talk about
and even the ending blurb, the little caption at the end says, and so the quest is ended. The prize is won. The long-dead past has yielded its half-forgotten secret to a youth who wouldn't surrender, who wouldn't lose his faith. The road has been long and the battle bitter, but now, in this one brief moment of eternity, the pounding heart of Peter Parker is flushed with victory, is filled with pride, such as few men before him have ever known. But I like how it even says, at least for now. Because
it's Spider-Man.
Let's be fair, guys.
Awesome story about Peter Parker's parents.
And then there's a bunch of backup stories at the end, and one of them is about the writers trying to come up with Spider-Man stories, and they're just these bumbling buffoons. It's worth a read.
Awesome. And that was which issue number again was
that? That is Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 5 from 1968.
I love it, man. And the Red Skull did not disappoint. All right, well, that's a kick-ass main segment, and that's going to lead us right into our game segment, which is Super-Mundane. All right, this is Super-Mundane. This is our game segment where basically I name a mundane task or activity, and Mike and I have to kind of decide which hero, or did we say villain? No, just really just
this
heroes.
One we're just keeping with heroes.
Just keep it with the best.
Or Deadpool.
Or Deadpool. Because, he can swing either way.
Or Gambit, or there are some characters
who kind of play it.
Hero is not the best term.
Yeah, very loose term. So heroes from, which hero is going to be the best fit for this task or activity?
And that was the other caveat. That was the change. Who would also be the worst?
That's right. So who would be the best and who would be the worst? So our Super Mundane for this episode is, who would be the best yoga instructor? It's a weird one.
Batman?
Batman? No. Batman's not going to be a good yoga instructor.
No, you're right. He would be so stern.
Yeah, like...
There's nothing relaxing about Batman.
A calm, relaxing environment... Flexible, motivating. Batman is only some of those things, and most of the motivating is through grim, angry talk.
That's true. That's very true.
I'm going to definitely say right away, not Wolverine.
No.
Probably a terrible yoga teacher.
Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner. Why?
Because that dude knows from relaxation techniques.
Oh my god, you're right!
That dude knows
the best.
All of the tricks. That's the plot point at the beginning of Incredible Hulk.
Incredible Hulk, you're right.
Of the 2008 film is that he's like... taking yoga and stuff.
If there's one dude, yeah, that's true. If there's one guy who's probably read every relaxation book in the world,
he knows all of them. Oh, does that not work for you? Try this. Does that not work for you? Try this.
I can breathe in 15 different ways. This is how.
I know all of the lamas.
That's awesome. That's true. He would probably be the best yoga instructor. That dude's pretty fit.
He keeps burning off all of the waste on his body,
and he's traveled the world. So yoga's
really
very like
he's learned from everyone. He's like a passive Bruce Banner, he is Bruce Banner. He's like a passive Bruce Wayne.
He's a passive and active Bruce Banner.
But I don't mean passive in the way that he's like. And not an active character.
Right.
He's not going out there searching for violence. He's doing the exact opposite of what Bruce Wayne did.
Right.
But he's also learning a lot of the same techniques. You know, those yoga people who teach that thing.
Yeah, how to sit on top of a mountain and use very little oxygen.
Yeah, how to do that thing that only movie characters like James Bond know how to do, where you slow your heart rate down to nothingness.
That one thing that's like, where do I take that class to learn to slow my heart rate?
It's physically impossible. Like, it's just like Bruce Wayne, Bruce Banner. Those are the people who signed up for that class.
That's true.
Pierce Brosnan's James Bond from that bad one. Because he does that trick in Die Another Day, and it's dumb as hell.
Of course, but hey, they somehow took that 3-hour class to slow one's heart rate.
It's a weekend course.
A weekend course?
It's a retreat.
So. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, Sherlock Holmes.
The last class is they drop you into an actual like ocean water, and you have to. And if you don't come out alive after like 15 minutes, you fail.
So he would be the best.
I think Bruce Banner definitely would be the best. That's awesome. That's a great pick. Who would be the worst? Now, I said Wolverine just because I can't imagine Wolverine.
Wolverine wants to be a samurai so badly.
That's true. He's a very world-traveling kind of guy.
He wants from his life for so much of his life. Not now. I think he wants to be like a teacher and a leader. Mm-hmm. Well, now he wants to not die because there's a comic called Death of Wolverine.
Yeah, Death of Wolverine that's coming out.
He's not going to win.
Yeah, probably going to die.
But... he wants to be a samurai. He wants to master the Berserker Rage. He's bad at it. Mm-hmm. So he's an interesting pick. He may not be the worst, but he's...
Who's just someone that could not tolerate...
Iron Man?
Tony Stark? But Tony Stark
but Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man would take yoga.
Would totally take yoga, if only for the fact to meet women.
Yeah.
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 If we didn't already say Human Torch...
Ben Grimm.
Ben Grimm... Well, he quite literally, I don't think, could do yoga.
I don't think he can do half those poses, at least.
Oh my god, you're right.
And he's such a street kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He would not be good with yoga.
He'd be like, what, people sitting in this room and, posing and stretching and stuff?
Oh, yeah, these granola kids with their yogurt hair.
That's... With their yogurt hair.
He doesn't know the terms.
Of course. The man's been out of touch with hair for a while. So it makes sense.
He's sometimes bald as Ben Grimm, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, he's not into the new yogurt hair fad that's going on these days.
I totally know all of the terms that yoga people do.
It's all about yogurt hair, and...
It's the crane strike.
Look, I know there's a downward dog, and I know there's some warrior poses, and that's about as far as I get.
They're doing some D&D themed yoga in Pennsylvania or something.
Just in one location?
Well, it's just like one
special breaking news: Pennsylvania D&D yoga.
They roll a dice, and then they're
no way.
And now you're in a cavern. So then they stretch all together.
Oh my god!
Look it up. D&D yoga. I wish it was here.
As crazy as that sounded, also sounds so interesting.
I would definitely do at least once.
I mean, you gotta try it once. Why not? Okay. Well, you know what? That is right. I mean, God, yeah, Ben Grimm, definitely the worst.
He would not be good with yoga.
Yeah.
Bruce Banner, and that's funny because those two characters, those guys come to blows a lot. Those are
that is interesting.
Those are the two big powerhouses. So
we found the biggest heavy hitters
from Marvel.
We found the central point of where they really don't agree, and that's their approach to yoga, Mike.
Pretty much.
Why Hulk and Thing don't get along very well.
Yep, that's why.
It's just yoga.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that's our definitive answer for who would be the best yoga instructor is Bruce Banner, a.k.a. the Hulk. Or not the Hulk.
Not the Hulk.
Sorry, just Bruce Banner. And Ben...
now I'm picturing
that wouldn't work. Downward dog smash! And Ben Grimm, a.k.a. the Thing, not the worst, probably, yoga instructor.
Master Lotus form!
I believe there was a comic where Hulk actually went and lived in a monastery in the mountains somewhere. So who knows? Maybe he brought some yoga with him.
Ultimate Wolverine versus Hulk.
Wolverine, yeah. I think David Lindelof wrote that. That's comic series.
Yeah, and Lin Yu.
And he's got a lot of time in those monasteries, so he might have been doing some downward dogs, some warriors, some lotuses.
You never know.
You never know.
You never know.
Crazy stuff. Well, guys, thank you for joining us. This was
a fun episode.
This was a fun episode. This was episode 11 of Because Comics. And guys, like always, we'll be posting a new episode every other week. If you'd like to download more episodes or check out other similar podcasts, head over to partialarc.com. In fact, we just are releasing an episode for Blockbuster Punch-Up.
Yeah, next week's episode,
Next week's episode that actually ties a little bit into this because for our Blockbuster that we're punching up is Amazing Spider-Man 2. And if you haven't been...
which is very Peter Parker parent-centric.
Very Peter Parker parent-centric, especially that whole new film series. So,
yeah,
if you had some qualms...
But I mean, they even put the plane crash in that movie.
In the very first scene of the film, by the way. It's in case you forgot, this is what the series is about.
Yeah.
So, guys, if you had some qualms with Amazing Spider-Man 2, or if you'd just like to hear some interesting retellings of how the film could have gone, tune in. It's really fun. So
yeah, I'm enjoying Blockbuster Punch-Up a lot. Although, the question, are you going to pitch Traitor... Algeria, Red Skull.
I feel like we didn't, Mike, and I feel like we missed a real opportunity with Algeria and Peter Parker spy parents.
Oh, well.
But, guys, tune in to find out if that might be the case or not in Blockbuster Punch-Up. And also, for more of our episodes, you can download on iTunes or check it out on partialarc.com or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at partialarc. We're actually moving some of our Twitter stuff under partialarc, and you can check us out and get updates there. And, of course, be sure to check out more content from our comic boy wonder, Mike Christensen, at supergeekmike.com.
And I'm also on Twitter at supergeekmike.
At supergeekmike. And again, thanks for listening, and remember...
See you, Space Cowboy. I'm watching a lot of Cowboy Bebop this week.
It is such a good show.
It's so damn good.
Because comics.